Hi there, and welcome to the Mindful Marathon podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Quirk, a run coach and pediatrician. Mindful Marathon is all about helping runners of all types to run their own race. Whether you are a seasoned runner or you're just getting started, I want to let you know that you're welcome here and that you're in the right place. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Marathon podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Quirk. I'm a pediatrician and a run coach and the founder of Mindful Marathon, where I help busy professionals make running easy and fun so they can achieve their fitness goals, improve their health, and embrace mindfulness. And today I have a very special guest with me. I have with me Dr. Kavita Patel. She is an internal medicine physician with a certification in culinary medicine, and she has a business, CulVita Consulting, which aids people in navigating food as medicine. And I am so excited to welcome her to the show today. We are very excited to have you, Dr. Kavita.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited to chat with you. And food as medicine is a huge topic, and nutrition for runners is a huge topic. But maybe we can start with you're a runner as well. How did you get into running? And tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure. So, most of my life, I played soccer as a child and later in high school, and it was all recreational for fun. I started finalizing my debut pieces for Indian classical dancing. And I still remember at that time, my dance teacher was like, you can't play soccer. We can't risk an injury. And so I started running as a way to still be outside and have that endurance and enjoy, kind of that exercise form. And it was a little bit safer and less risky on the knees, injuries, and ankles for the 3 hour performance that I had to prepare for. So I did that kind of for fun, short, 1 mile courses in track. But I was really in college when I really regularly started running with a friend or in groups or even alone. And then at home in the summertime, I would still do it as a way to just exercise, have fun, and be out in nature.
Yeah. And I love that. I have nature behind me in the photo. I love
That's
running
great.
in nature. Yeah. How did
Mhm.
you get interested in culinary medicine and adding that to your repertoire as a physician?
Thanks for asking. In primary care, I was diagnosing so many young adults with diet related diseases, and some had more severe numbers, high cholesterol or blood pressure, that while therapeutic lifestyle changes would be on the table, really medication was going to be necessary sooner rather than later, depending on the severity. And that really scared my younger adults. The thought of having to take a medication and not just being so blindsided because they didn't feel their high blood pressure or
Mhm.
severely high LDL cholesterol levels. The first question I get asked is, what can I do? What could I specifically do because I'm motivated? I want to make these changes, but how? And other than blanket statements of 2 gram sodium diet or cut back fried and fatty foods, I really didn't feel like I had tools to offer them. And to me, I wasn't able to completely fill the service to the patient in front of me without, giving them the tools to be able to have that fighting chance for 3 months to make changes. And so that's when I found this program and enrolled and loved every minute of it.
Mhm.
And after that, during the course, felt like I could start sharing with family and friends, and of course, my patients in the clinic, of how to make these changes, how to maybe not need the statin in 3 months if you're borderline cholesterol without severe risk for heart disease, for example.
Mhm.
And it was so rewarding.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
so rewarding. And, some of my patients were on 3 blood pressure medications and they got to come down to 2. And that was just eye opening for them. They thought that once a doctor prescribes this medication, it's a life sentence and it's a one-way route. But I
Yeah.
showed them that bi-directional route, which most patients never had the opportunity to understand.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I can only imagine. I mean, it's tough sometimes for patients and even clients of mine to see that small changes can really, if done consistently and done well, they can lead to big lifestyle changes in the future. And it seems like, people hear the name Mindful Marathon and think that I only coach marathoners, but really I'm all about movement and getting off of the couch and even a little bit of movement a day to start with. So what you say resonates, and the magic of the nutrition piece and the exercise piece really is key, I think, along with other lifestyle measures, of course, like good sleep and all of those things. We were chatting beforehand, so Dr. Kavita has been vegetarian for a long while. And I describe myself as a plant-forward eater. So I find in my discussion with a lot of runners that they really don't know how to go about eating a vegetarian diet, like how to make those changes, first of all. And then secondly, how we can get enough protein in a vegetarian diet. So maybe can you speak a little bit about the vegetarian diet in general, and then we'll go into the protein piece.
Absolutely. Growing up vegetarian, in our traditional Indian home, our plate was always full with like a flatbread, roti, and then a vegetable as the main, and then a little salad with ground cumin of cucumbers, tomatoes, onions. And so to me, that's kind of when I see a plate, that's what my childhood, was most of the time seeing, with variation, of course. But our typical Gujarati meal was that, and followed by rice and dal, for example. And so, um, to me, growing up, there was never the thought of the dependence of meat as my source of protein. Um, because I recognized, I guess, the protein that are in our legumes, our beans, and even in vegetables, which a lot of people don't realize. And so being vegetarian for me and for our family isn't necessarily difficult, because truly most Americans are over consuming protein without realizing it. And
Mhm,
and so, I've never felt like we haven't had a balance of enough protein, which should really be about 35% of your daily intake of calories. And most servings of meat are over, the what would be a portion size of like a deck of playing cards.
mhm,
Um, and so I think if people stuck by that, they wouldn't necessarily overconsume and would see how easy it is to feel full from a really good, nutritious protein and complex carbohydrate meal.
mhm. Yeah. Do you have advice for how to like make slow changes in the direction of going toward plants? I mean, I would take this advice myself, but for the athletes listening, how do we get started if we are, you know, eating a lot of meat right now?
Great question. Um, if somebody's eating meat 7 days of the week, I would maybe start with one day, picking a day where you're making that concerted effort to have black bean quesadillas for dinner, for example, or a really simple red lentil marinara sauce as the pasta base, to kind of, that consistency is hidden, and instead of the meat in that marinara or that ragu kind of having the lentil, which is really simple to cook.
Mhm,
And so start simple. It doesn't have to be complicated or a 30-minute meal. Just simply pressure cooking extra black beans so that you have it for
mhm,
next Monday or next week, that portion, because adding that to a quesadilla with some vegetables is really nutritious, filling, and you're getting all the components of the nutrients that you need.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so just starting with simple and what's palatable to you is
Yeah.
where I would start. And to a meal that you enjoy, but kind of sneaking things in.
Yeah. Do you have any cookbooks or like websites that would be helpful, maybe that I can share in the show notes?
Online, one of my favorites is Piping Pot Curry.
Ooh,
She
okay.
has very, very well written out. A lot of like Indian based recipes in the Instant Pot. So
Okay.
the measurements are perfect. But that would be for somebody who, kind of like me, I have my ground ginger always in my freezer or my ground garlic. So that time component isn't necessarily complicated for me. Cookie and Kate. Her blog is wonderful as a whole foods, not necessarily vegan, but she'll give vegan alternatives, but very wholesome recipes that are complex, can be complex, but most of the times very simple, very straightforward, and can be a weeknight meal if you wanted, or a weekend meal that you make an extra of for the weeknights
Hmm.
that I love. So there's like an Indian one and then a non-Indian one. Those are two that I really love.
Okay, great. I will also leave those in the show notes for everybody too.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and certain recipes like curries and things like that, where normally I would have put in chicken, can easily be, you can substitute something out for the chicken.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people don't love tofu, but tofu also is a good source of protein.
It is, and agreed. Our family we usually put tofu in Asian curry recipes, not necessarily Indian, because we're so used to paneer, for example, being
Hmm.
in it. But chickpeas are also a good substitute in a lot of curries or some type of dal, just
Yep.
because the texture is just totally different. So you're not expecting a replacement of chicken.
So with a vegetarian diet, a lot of runners have they have the obstacle that it is very carbohydrate heavy, and not just the runners. I think this is there is a fear of carbs out there right now, that carbs equals weight gain. I think
Mhm.
one of the myths we're trying to dispel is that protein equals meat, which it doesn't necessarily have to, and the other is that carbs lead to weight gain. And um, I wanted us to talk about the importance of carbohydrates and how to kind of balance that in our diet, because as runners, we really need the carbs as fuel. And I feel like I have an uphill battle saying that because a lot of people are like, yes, but the carbs will lead to weight gain.
That's right. I think it's actually you're absolutely right. And the myths are out there. There's so much marketing that's confusing, but truly excess protein in the diet because there's no storage, that's actually what can lead to increased fat. Whereas, our muscles, our liver, they have the ability to absorb and store the excess carbohydrate. We don't have that naturally in the form of protein.
Mhm.
Carbohydrates, there's a lot of misinformation about them. In general, half of our calories should be in good carbohydrates. But when running, a lot of people think, okay, when I should carb load, they're thinking pasta, they're thinking bagels. And most of the time, these are not complex carbohydrate versions of food. And that's the problem, was when the grain itself is stripped of all the good nutrients, vitamins, and minerals, we're left with a simple carbohydrate that's not, it might give us short term fuel, but it's not giving us anything else that we need.
Mhm.
So, focusing on the complexity of the carbohydrate to get us the glycogen that we need and our muscles need to get us through that longer run is extremely important for our safety, our health. And then let the protein do the building blocks for the muscle.
Mhm.
So they work together, they're both needed. And there's so many good sources of carbohydrates that are nutritious, that are probably not included in people's day to day, which is
Mhm.
why they're fearful of it when they're running, because they might be thinking that it's going to cause weight gain, like you said, because
Yeah.
we're used to maybe snacking on pretzels, which are such a simple and easy carbohydrate, for example, or
Mhm.
popcorn, or rice cakes or something like that. And they think pasta and bagels, like that's usually people's go-to, and bread, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Can you give us some examples of foods that would be like higher in the nutrients that we're looking for that are not like totally processed and stripped of all of that?
Yes, absolutely. So One thing I do with my kids is go through the cereal aisle and just kind
Hmm.
of show them and compare like how much there's processed between one type of cereal and another.
Hmm.
So shredded wheats, for example, is something that we keep and we'll mix it with other things in our home to make it a little bit more tasty, like fresh fruit. But shredded wheat is a great cereal, whole grain, but very little processing, but something you can also carry in a bag or store with you on the go.
Hmm.
And another is oats, for example. I mentioned Cooking Kate. Her blog is terrific, and her granola is something that we cycle, in our household probably every 3 weeks because it lasts our family of four a whole week if we eat it for breakfast. And super nutritious, and it's so full of fiber that we're actually hungry a lot less later than, or I'm sorry, a lot later for lunch
Hmm.
than if we ate kind of a simpler, less complex carb for breakfast.
Hmm. Yeah.
So cereals, there's some noodles, for example, that are now made of millet and brown rice. And so those are the noodles that we'll keep at home for, to use on a rotating basis.
Hmm.
Um, and even mixing pasta, whole grain pasta, or a chickpea flour pasta with regular pasta as a kind of way to sneak in that iron and protein and fiber
Yep.
into that meal.
Yeah, those sound delicious. I love chickpeas, and they make also a great snack if you if you have an air fryer or you make them like crunchy,
Yep,
they're delicious.
they are. They're very satisfying. There's so many things you can do with chickpeas.
Hmm.
At the
Yes.
Indian store, you can buy them in like a 4 or 6 pound bag, and that's what we keep in our pantry. And when I pressure cook them, I'll pressure cook extra. So we'll have some in our curry, and then we'll make hummus with it for the week
Mm,
for sandwiches, for example. It's another
yeah.
great one to incorporate the protein into, a regular meal, but you don't need meat, but you got the hummus,
Yep.
and
Yep.
lots of good sesame and tahini and protein from the chickpeas. So lots of good
Yeah.
nutrients going on there.
Delicious. Do you have some
Mhm.
go-to snacks as well?
Yes. So snacks are so important for the longer runs, especially if you're running more than 60, 90 minutes at a time. So bananas kind of my go-to.
Hmm.
Uh, on my route when I run, actually lately I've been stopping by the fresh market. I think some of them recognize me now, and I buy one banana and hydrate there and move on. Dates are a really good source of the potassium and also just like good sugars.
Hmm.
So those are kind of good, easy snacks to keep. You can easily store it in like a pocket or whatever you run with, or buy it like the banana. Um, I also make little date energy balls with dates, peanut butter, coconut, walnuts. So that's easy to store, and run with.
Yeah, I've been sneaking dates into my smoothie in the morning after my run, like just a couple. They
Okay.
are so good.
They're good.
Yeah.
They're good. And you just need a couple to really
Sweeten
get.
it up. Yeah.
Yeah, to sweeten it up because there's a lot of sugar. So overeating is the opposite side. So, even when my kids want the dates as a snack, they get one for
Mm.
them. As an
Hmm.
adult, for me and my husband, we get two, and that's a great snack. And even though it's teeny tiny, it's so concentrated in the amount of sugar and fiber in there. But it's
Yeah.
the perfect amount for running.
Yeah, they are delicious. And
Mhm.
I actually, when you were talking about the energy balls, I have a recipe for energy balls with oats and coconut and lots of other good things, but I have not tried dates, so I will throw the dates in. That will probably be really good.
Yeah, they're a great natural sweetener.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, thank you for all of these. I feel like we got a lot of hacks and tips. That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so tell us, you have a course coming up. Please tell us about that.
Thank you. So starting in about a month, for physicians, through my learning through culinary medicine, I've had physicians become clients because they themselves, we never got taught a lot of these things in medical school. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, a lot of our physician colleagues, unfortunately, have, poor quality food in the doctor's lounges, for example, or even in training. You just eat what you can get whenever you can get it. And that's like kind of that survival mode of food to just keep you going instead of thinking and taking the time to really be thoughtful about what you're consuming. And so this workshop will be for physicians, and it's going to be tailored at 4 different common questions that I get. So diet related diseases specifically. So for example, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and then, one whole dedicated to carbohydrates and diabetes. And so it'll be a 4-session workshop with one-on-one individual sessions in between for that kind of customizable, how do I apply this general topic to my life? Because I think that's the hardest component is the application and making sure what fits into person A's life can be completely different to person B's life. And so helping people understand that healthy eating does not have to be complicated. It can be
Mhm.
simple and affordable.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Tell us where people can find out about it.
Thanks. So I have a website, CulVitaConsulting.com, and my Instagram handle is at CulVita Consulting. And so I'll be announcing more details through both of those avenues.
Yeah, and I will leave those links below too, so everybody, if you go to the show notes, you can find out about it. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Michelle.
Yeah, it was great, and thank you to everyone for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the podcast so that we can reach and encourage others to tie on their sneakers and join us out there on a run. See you next time.